this eve of the 4th of December 2008. This is your authoritative and independent television news channel KTN Prime. I'm Charles Kemboy. On tonight's headlines, PNU polls in slow start as officials target top seats. A farm manager is charged with $500,000 Kenya shillings robbery. On the international scene, President-elect Obama expected to name Clinton and Bill Gates. And later in sports, the Battle of Titans takes place at Kahawa Barrack. Good evening. The Party of National Unity's grassroots elections this morning continued at a slow pace, even as top officials put up a brave face. Though party spokesman George Nyamuya says the elections were successful, reports from across the country give a different picture. He says once the grassroots elections are completed tomorrow, they'll be followed by the national polls on December 19th during the National Delegates Conference. The conference will be held at the Kasarani Sports Center, where the national officials will be picked. At the moment, Internal Security Minister George Saitoti is gunning for the position of chairman, while Mr. Nyamuya, a nominated MP, and Energy Minister Kiraitu Murungi are eyeing the Secretary General's seat. There are plans to create the position of party leader for President Kibaki, a move seen as giving Professor Saitoti a free ride to the chairmanship. Party Secretary General Albert Kamau said positions were hotly contested in various regions. And that lead story brings us to tonight's opinion question. We are asking you, do you think the PNU grassroots elections were fair? Do you think the PNU grassroots elections were fair? SMS your yes or no to the numbers on your screen, that is 8080, and we'll sample some of your responses at the end of this live newscast. Stay tuned to KTN Prime. A manager in the East Africa Portland Cement was on Tuesday charged with receiving a 500,000 Kenya shillings bribe. Mr. Thomas Ombasa was accused of receiving the cash from Mr. Titus Chalo, acting as an agent of businessman Robin Motuma. Mr. Kenya was also charged with giving 650,000 Kenya shillings as a bribe through Chalo and another agent, Mr. Eric Maende. The money is said to have been an inducement for Ombasa to issue a cement distribution letter to DKM Distributors Company. They too denied the charges before Senior Principal Magistrate Cecilia Gedua yesterday morning and were each released on 1 million bond or 500,000 Kenya shillings cash bail, which they paid. The case will be heard next month. The international scene, Zimbabwe riot police wielding batons charged protesting union members, doctors and nurses to disperse demonstrations as the country sank further into crisis. Zimbabwean trade unions have called a day of protest over a deepening banking and cash shortage crisis, while at least 100 doctors and nurses protested outside the health ministry in the capital, Harare. A cholera outbreak has killed nearly 500 people and infected almost 12,000 Zimbabweans, forcing hundreds to cross the border with South Africa to seek treatment. The spread of cholera, normally a preventable and treatable disease, highlights the collapse in the once relatively prosperous African nation where President Robert Mugabe and the opposition are squabbling over how to implement a power-sharing agreement. State media says that the central bank will introduce new higher denomination banknotes of up to 100 million Zimbabwean dollars as it battles to contain hyperinflation. Now over to tonight's edition of the Eco Journal, where we take a look at the effects of development on environment. Stay tuned to KTN Prime.
Situated almost at the center of Daystar University at the River Campus, in the rich semi-arid grassland of Daystar, lies a dam. It is the Daystar Dam. The Daystar Dam is a source of water for the entire Daystar community, and not only this, it also serves as home for various plant species and animal species. With its depth going to 9 feet below, the dam acts as a reservoir. It acts as a reservoir for the water that is used by the entire university. all the water that is found within this deep reservoir are directed towards one of these tanks, and these tanks in turn provide water to the many students and indeed the faculty staff residing within the campus.
Welcome back. The government's radical intervention in the maize market is a temporary measure meant to end a price distortion caused by a perceived shortage of the commodity. Prime Minister Raila Odinga has made the disclosure at the Kenyatta International Conference Center in Nairobi, while launching a document, the Kenya Competitiveness Benchmark Report 2008, produced by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. This follows conclusion of the second round table meeting between the government and private sector players. He denied claims that the government wanted different categories of maize flour for the rich and for the poor, saying that the government's branded maize meal will be available to all consumers regardless of status. The government will allow the importation of 5 million bags as an interim measure to regulate the market and ensure that both farmers and retail consumers are cushioned. Now over to sports, where it's a hoot and toot for Giant 2nd Brigade and Artillery Brigade as they battle in the finals of the Chief of General Staff Golden Cup at Kahawa Barracks. The final pitting of the two is a significant affair, as victory by any of them will be etched in the Armed Forces football annals. Artillery, who are tasting the finals for the second time, will have an opportunity to carve their name in the CGS Hall of Fame should they emerge victors. Likewise, the Nakuru-based 2nd Brigade will be the team that shall have won the tournament the most, that is 5 times, should they triumph. The duel is expected to be one of a kind for the two who are yet to incur a defeat. The sides drew 0-0 in their pool, a preliminary match. Besides, both teams will be fighting without their top players, with artillery marksman Francis Ochieng away with Ulinzi for the African Military Games in Uganda. 2nd Brigade are without 8 of their top players, including prolific goal hunters Collins Ochieng and Vincent Onyango, who are also included in the Ulinzi squad. Next, a look at tomorrow's weather. Just before we go on tonight's newscast, we asked you, do you think the PNU elections were fair? And the results are here, as you can see on your screen. The yes are 75% and the no are 25%. There is a yes here from Pauline from Namanga. Yes, the elections were fair because the electorates got to choose their own leaders. And Chris from Nyeri says no, it began too late. The officials were bribed during the process. Yes, from Nadia from Kakamega says yes, it was fair and free. And Eve from Mombasa says no, it was all about the leaders imposing themselves on the voters. Well, those are just some of your opinions. Thank you so much for participating on tonight's newscast. Have a great evening and enjoy the rest of your viewing. I'm Charles Kemboy.